Hello!
Hello, AOS fans!
It's the agents of Nethermaze.
And in this video, we're doing a quick wash-up of our game of Warhammer Underworlds, which was the Skaven versus the Shadeborn.
Yes, now we played the game. Do go and check that out. There will be links in descriptions and things and all over the place. So do go and look at that if you're interested in watching the match. But we're just going to run through a quick summary of how the game went for us and how we found it.
And also, welcome to you if you're listening to us on our podcast. We do intend to put these little game summaries up on our podcast for people to listen to. So do let us know if you like this sort of content and you want to see more of it or not. Listen to more of it, I suppose. Can't really see it as a podcast, but yes, so welcome to you guys.
Welcome to the first Underworlds wash-up video.
Wash-up video / podcast / whatever.
So I don't know about you, Robin, but I found the very start of the game, the setup, I kind of didn't have too much of an idea of what I'm doing because we haven't done much with the decks, but I got to place the boards, and so I just placed them dead on because I figured with the speed I've got, you couldn't keep away from me. You couldn't keep your boss at the back of the board in that situation.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we struggle from lack of preparation, really, don't we? I mean, although I kind of you get lured into a false sense of security playing Rivals. Kind of like, oh, I don't really need to look at the cards because I know which ones I'm going to take. And then when you sit down at the table, you realise you don't know what any of the cards are. So you draw your hand and like I literally got no clue whether these are good or whether I should keep them or what I might draw into if I change them. And I actually ended up drawing into my third end phase card, which is quite a good card.
But not having the first round.
Because it enables me to, I just have to get into your half and having people in cover hexes. It's quite good because my guys are quite quick too. And it's quite scoreable if you draw it later, but it obviously was completely unscoreable, so I was already fighting a losing battle on that ground. Yeah,
I redrew my objectives because I figured, the first ones I had aren't that great, but then the next ones I drew were about staggering two or more fighters, having all of my fighters in your half, which when you've only got 4 activations and 5 fighters is impossible to score unless you decide to come along and kill some of them. And the last one was to make an attack with Grievous with a crit in it, which I then didn't make the only attack I had that had Grievous in it. Because of the way things unfolded.
In that game.
I did, but I didn't want to commit my leader near the end because it became apparent that your boss wasn't going to die, and because of that, I wasn't going to commit my leader in the first round and make the mistake I had done previous games.
I drew quite early into kill the enemy leader, but I kept it and I nearly scored it.
You did, very nearly.
Right at the end.
I did get my Misplaced Optimism card out in the first round, which was great for me because it means I can shunt your leader forwards.
That's a really good card.
And makes him much more reachable.
On the strength of this game, I felt like your cards synergised a bit better with your fighters than mine did. A lot of mine are like, do this if you're in cover hexes, but when you start, you're not really in any cover hexes.
Yeah.
And there isn't anything to move, I didn't have anything at least, to move you about.
Yeah.
Move myself about into, like, sidestep into a cover hex, and I think my card draw was a little bit unfortunate. I drew three upgrades, a spell, and a ploy to start off with. So I ditched those, and then drew 3 upgrades again.
Yeah.
And then I drew into upgrades later. So I didn't ever play very many ploys, which I think these guys possibly need them. Although I don't, like I say, I haven't checked the cards. So I don't know what is in there that would have been useful.
Yeah, I had the classic thing in the first round where I kept thinking too many steps ahead, and then because of that, I then forgot that I needed to make an attack with Grievous, which means I needed to attack my leader, but I was too focused on trying to kill your leader, so I didn't want to do that in the end because it wasn't going to happen. So I didn't score making a Grievous attack with a crit. I didn't score get people in your half, and the last one I had, which is stagger 2 or more of your fighters, I didn't score either, and I could have scored that one had I moved one of my guys into a better position, but I didn't because I didn't want to give you the extra assists because obviously that's the problem.
Yeah.
And had I actually managed the attack, your boss would have been dead and I wouldn't have staggered him then. So
you had a phenomenally good second round though. You hit every single attack.
I think my second round saved me.
And took down. I had a couple of cards where I had to have people in gloom hexes. You just kept killing them, or at the very end you didn't kill him, but you pushed him out of the gloom hex.
Yeah.
And that got me a couple of glory. So had it gone differently, had you only hit with half your attacks, then I could have scored 4 glory.
Yeah.
I would have been reasonable to expect that you only hit with 3 out of 4, then I would have scored 2 glory. But your attacks are very good. Those rats, I mean, they're better, significantly better than Spike Claw.
Oh, definitely, yes. I mean, even the guy who does roll 2 swords does 2 damage.
Yeah, I was quite shocked by that.
Yeah, I was as well. When I saw the card, I was like, oh my God.
Especially when I've only got 3 wounds, most of my fighters, and not really any ways to improve that. There is a little healing thing. And
I've got multiple people who have like a range 3 attack as well. So even though it's 1 damage, I fucking ping
Yeah,
away
although
at you.
I used that to quite good effect.
Yeah.
Against you, as well. Unfortunately, I didn't get the card out. It was right. I did draw it later after he was dead. The card where you can do another repeated crossbow attack is really good, and it's particularly good against the Skaven.
Yes.
Because then you're not that strong, and you kind of just whittle you down.
And I think at the end of the second round, I don't think I scored any end phase cards again because I only had 2 fighters left. One of them was have the upgrades on 3 fighters, one was have 3 fighters next to someone, and one was kill somebody with your leader supporting. And again, they're quite tricky to do with the Skaven because they drop like flies. Generally, you don't want to have lots of fighters next to one alive fighter unless it's like the ogre and you're just dogpiling people in. So I think at the end of the second round, it was 3 glory apiece. I don't think I'd scored.
I think it was 4
It
each.
might have been 4. And
I think it was 4 each, but yes, I was like, oh great, I haven't scored anything. You said, oh, I haven't scored anything either.
Right.
So I thought I was done because, like I said, mine were I had the surge kill your leader, which obviously I hadn't done. I didn't even target your leader in that round, and then I had excuse me. I also had the other ones were have fighters in gloom hexes, and when you're hitting every attack, like I said already, it's really hard to keep people in gloom hexes.
The attack saved me because I think in that second round I had 1 ploy, which is reduced the damage to 1, which I never needed in the end, and I had 4 upgrades.
Right.
So I just couldn't
That
really.
ploy
have
saved you
nothing.
though at the end of the game.
It did. Third round was a comedy of errors, really, because it was like 4 glory apiece. I then moved someone forwards and staggered your fighter, but I didn't attack her because all of the objectives I had at that point were about having either killing a staggered fighter or having more staggered fighters alive than weren't staggered in your team. So I was like, I need to stagger him, and then if I fail to kill him, I'll at least score a glory or 2.
It nearly cost you the game though, because I nearly killed both of your fighters.
Very nearly did, because you killed my fighter straight away in your first activation, and then they traded blows, my leader and your guy, for the rest of the game, really. And it was only because I remembered near the end that you were staggered and I had a reroll, which I forgot for all my other attacks, that I finally managed to kill you right at the end there.
I hadn't realised that she went up to 3 swords, 3 damage. I may have played her slightly differently.
It's quite brutal because it's range 2 as well,
It's
isn't
range
it?
2. I might have tried to get her inspired earlier. End of round charge onto somebody who's already damaged would have inspired her, and then she'd have been firing off 3, I did a 3 swords, 3 damage attack, and then I might have been able to take your leader down earlier.
Yes, because you did get 1 successful attack on my leader, but then I used the reduce it to 1 damage card, which was absolutely clutch.
Yeah.
Because I killed you at the end, that gave me 5 glory effectively, because I got 1 for daggers in the dark, which is kill somebody who's staggered, and I got 1 for killing you. And then the card I drew into before the end of the game was 1 or more enemy leaders dead and 4 or more fighters dead, which was 3 glory. So that was a phenomenal card at that point to get.
Definitely clutch.
But the overall score was then 9 to 7. So that wasn't actually...
If you hadn't drawn into that card...
Yeah, and the other cards I had left to me was Unsurprising Fate, which is score an end phase if 1 or more friendly minions is out, which I would have scored that one. And the other one I had not drawn at that point. I think it might have been Way of the Striking Fang, which is scoring an end phase if 1 or more leaders is out of action, which would have got me 1. So I would have scored 1 either way, but either way, that would have possibly been a draw.
Yeah. And these guys don't seem to have. I'm going to quick flick through. They haven't got very many things for pushing them around into gloom hexes. So I think I don't know what's available in the main game anymore because we don't really follow
the main universal meta.
No, exactly. That is definitely a limitation of them if you can't get them into gloom hexes.
The Skaven, I think they're obviously they inspire by either killing the boss or targeting the boss or putting 4 wounds on the boss. So their tactics are pretty much telegraphed from the start. You know what's going on. Yeah. If you're not rocking a chunky fighter, you want them right at the back of the board for the most part, which can be painful if your boss is, quite hard hitting.
I thought you would come into my area and I would take you down. Yeah, I did put her fairly far back. I didn't want to put her next to the lethal hex, and other than that, I couldn't have put her any further.
Yeah, you're 1 hex away from the very back of the board for those who can't see where we're pointing.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I knew that you would come forward, and therefore I would then hopefully, because there's a lot of gloom hexes here, hopefully I would be able to use that to my advantage. I didn't really get very many of the cards, which I did in the other game we played. I didn't get very many of the cards out where I could put the shadow hexes on people.
Yeah, and you only got 1 of those, didn't you?
Yeah, so that would have really probably helped because it would have helped me score. And actually, it doesn't help you score the objectives because they go
It's
They
true.
go at the end of the phase.
But they do tend to sort of enable you to do other stuff,
yes,
don't
they
they?
do. Yeah, definitely.
On reflection, I wonder if I should have dropped my power cards and redrawn them, because whilst I wouldn't have had the move your leader forward 2 hexes card, I possibly would have got some of the other. I don't know if there are other cards better to have. I think that's probably one of the best cards you can start the game with, actually, is the Skaven, because if you can pull that leader model forwards 2 hexes, you can make it so that most of your Skaven can then reach them.
Yes,
and
you can take them down.
yeah, and I think comically, in some ways, because the Skaven are quite weak, that hinders your inspiration ability somewhat, because you want to target wounded fighters, but if you keep one-shotting them, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, well, actually, but I didn't actually one-shot anybody this time, which I struggled with it more against the skeletons.
Yes,
and that might be because they've. Why did you start on 2 dodge? Don't you?
some of the Skaven do. Some will start on 2 dodge. Some are on
because
1.
I was thinking they had shields, and I kept trying to do 1 damage against skeletons and not being able to, and that really stymied me. But this time, I managed to injure somebody and then keep, because you've got a bit of range. You can kind of, well, I've injured that person now, I can hit them with a couple of fighters, so that inspired a couple of them. Yeah. Poor old Valissa, I think she's gone 2 games now without being inspired. And I think she's the Arnulf of the group.
Dear. Oh dear.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I still enjoyed that game, probably as much as I enjoyed our first 2 games.
I think I enjoyed it slightly less than the other 2, but I think that's just because I didn't quite get the synergy with my cards this time.
Yeah,
I think it's probably luck of the draw as much as anything else.
I didn't find the Skaven to be as effective this time round, and again, I think the card draw didn't come out quite well enough. Some of the Skaven objectives, I've said this many times already, but some of the Skaven objectives can be quite tricky or near impossible to score, depending. But I feel like if we'd played like a best of 3, possibly we would have had more chance for card synergies to come out.
Quite possibly, yes. So who are we going to play next? I feel like we ought to try and play, although I think it might be a bit one-sided, but I feel like we ought to try and play Scritch versus Scratch.
Scritch versus Scratch. Yeah. Because Scritch would have to play with like the illusion deck or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's true. If we were playing Rivals, yes, he would, wouldn't he? Yeah. So that might not be good. We could play Rivals Plus, maybe.
We could play Rivals Plus.
Yeah, we could play Rivals Plus.
Yeah, let us know.
Scratch.
Let us know for those watching, listening at home, wherever you can, leave a comment. Do you want to see a Skaven off? Do you want to see Scritch versus I can't even remember his name. That's how little I played him.
Scratch.
So, yeah, Scritch versus Scratch.
Do you want to see Scratchy Show?
Do you want to see Skittershank versus Scritch, who is the greatest? Yes. Or do you want to see something else? Do you want to see the Shadeborn up against somebody? Maybe Dark Elves versus the Cow Elves?
Well, I've been thinking about this today while I was tidying up and getting ready for tonight, and I thought they would be really fun to play against the Knothi.
The Banoffee trackers, yeah. And we could play Rivals there as well.
The Wild Hunt. I thought the Wild Hunt Rivals versus the Shadow Elves would be good. So let us know if you want to see that, or let us know which match-offs you'd like to see, and we'll see what we can do.
Yes, definitely. But I don't think this has dulled my appetite for Nethermaze. I think I'm still enjoying this a lot more than I was Harrow Deep. So
yeah, I think I just need to remember to look at the cards maybe a little bit before we sit down to play.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you said about it's done more for you than Harrow Deep. I've got no interest in playing against any of the Harrow Deep warbands, unless you guys want to see them. But particularly, I was thinking definitely don't want to play against Black Powder.
No, I don't want to play with or against him. It's 0 there.
I really don't want to play with Xandai, though I do quite like the models, but I don't really want to play with her. And I never really, you never really got a feel for the Cruel Boy, so I've never really got a feel for the Cruel Boy. So
there's lots of stuff out there for the Cruel Boys, and I think that they could possibly be quite fun to play, but possibly they're more fun to play with Universals at hand, and I wonder whether they're just their Rivals deck. But then we only played them like once or twice, so and maybe they'd be all right. Let us know what you want to see.
Yes, yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let us know if it works as a podcast format.
Yep.
In particular. And if you ever listen to it, and we'll be back soon with some Underworlds. We've got a few other bits and pieces coming up. We've got another Marvel Crisis Protocol game will be dropping soon, and we've got a game called Ascension Tactics. Hopefully, it'll be appearing on the channel soon. It's a hex-based game with some deck building thrown in, so it's kind of Underworldsy. So let us know what you think of that when it arrives.
And of course, we're working to get some Lord of the Rings into the channel as well at some point in the very near future too. Robin is salivating as we speak.
Yes.
So we see you soon in the Underworlds.